So, Serbennia, we know you're an Army veteran and you served 31 years in our military. But let's start with what made you decide to join the Army, and what kind of career path did you take in the Army that led you to, well, make it a career?
Well, I started out, I wanted to go to college.
Hmm.
And when I joined in 1984, there weren't too many businesses that were offering college tuition and scholarships for someone like me, who I was a single mom. And the military, the reserves, the National Guard both were offering grants and scholarships and tuition and books, and that was right up my alley because I'd started college, but after becoming a single mom, I would take one class here, one class there, and I just wanted to finish my degree. So I joined and went in, did basic training at Fort Jackson. I got hooked. When I was in basic, the drill sergeants were trying to talk me into staying and changing my contract from reserve to active duty. And I said, no, I've got a little girl at home. I have to go back home.
Right.
I ended up in human resources. Back in those days, they called it personnel.
Yep.
I went to drill one day and there was a sign posted where they were looking for someone in public affairs. And they were looking for an E4. I said, ooh, public affairs, I can do that. I can take pictures and write stories. So I came in, they interviewed me, and I was talkative. The guys in my unit, it was a small detachment. It was maybe less than 10 of us. But all the guys in the unit were either professional in their field, or they were college students majoring in journalism. And here I am. At that time, I was an ROTC cadet, and I just thought I knew everything. So they asked me to come in for an interview. So I brought in my English paper that I'd written, and I got an A. So I gave them my paper, and they said, can you write? I said, of course, here's my paper. I got an A. So when they saw my paper, they kind of chuckled. They were older guys. I was like the baby in the bunch. And once I got in there with them, they taught me everything. They taught me how to write. I would write stories, and they would mark up my paper with red pens as if I was a student in college. And I'm looking at them like, I thought that was good. And once they got me to where they wanted me to be at with knowing how to do stories and developing pictures, then I was off to my first AT. I got to go to Panama, Honduras. I stayed there. I enjoyed it. I knew minimal Spanish, but I loved my job. We weren't in an office. We were out in the jungle. I was the one always sneaking around with my camera, trying to catch the shot, trying to catch them in action, doing something, doing their job. And one day there was a young man who had, I thought it was a horse, and I found out later it was a donkey. He was riding around on his donkey, and I went up, started taking his picture, and he said in Spanish, telling me to get up on the donkey, and I didn't know what he was saying. And one of the other guys spoke fluent Spanish, and they said, he wants you to get up there. So the donkey had no kind of gear or anything on there, and I'm trying to climb up there. So they had to boost me up and get me on the donkey. And once I got up there, all these guys who I'd been taking pictures of, they pulled cameras out from nowhere and just started taking my pictures. I say, hey, what's going on? So that was the beginning of my Army career. Once I got to Panama, I was hooked. After I was in public affairs for a long time, they had a cap on how many people could get promoted in the unit. So in order for me to go to the next level, I had to get out of the unit to go to another unit. So that kind of broke my heart. But during all this time, I'm still trying to advance in the reserves. I was also, I worked full time. I was a single mom, and I went to school full time.
you met your husband in the military.
I did.
In the Army.
Yes.
Married 26 years, right? Coming
Yes.
on 27. So
Yes.
how'd you two meet? And how you keeping it strong 27 years later?
Well, when I tell the story and he tells the story, they're different stories.
Right.
He has his version and I have mine.
Okay.
So this is my version.
Yep.
When I came back out of public affairs and went back to human resources, his MOS is also HR and human resources. There was a magazine that our public affairs people put out every month. On the inside was our feature stories where we did a centerfold with layout photos of each one of the journalists who took some photographs that we thought were interesting. And of course, the one of me sitting on the donkey got in there. I came in one day and somebody said, Sergeant Clark, something. And he said, Sergeant Clark. And he stopped. He was like walking past. Is your first name Serbennia? And I turned around, I looked at him. I said, yeah, who are you? So he said, you were on the Thunderbolt. You were in the Thunderbolt, weren't you? I said, shh, yeah. He said, yeah, I know you. I said, you don't know me. He said, oh, but I saw your picture.
The picture on the donkey.
Yeah.
Yes.
He said, you were sitting on a donkey. So at that particular time, we just had a working relationship. We were friends. I wasn't interested in him. He was a nice guy. Long story short, he had to get dinner work done. He called me early that morning. He said, Sergeant Clark, remember you said if I need anything, let you know? I said, sure, yes, Sergeant Davis. I said, what's up? What's going on? He said, the person who was going to give me a ride, they just canceled. And I need a ride to the dentist. I said, oh. I said, okay. I said, let me switch some things around. I'll give you a ride and then I'll drop you off and then I'll come back home. And I was supposed to help my girlfriend move that day. I said, I'll just let her know I'll be back. I took him to his appointment, shot back home to try to help her move. I thought he was going to be there for a while. As soon as I walked in the door, the nurse calls and she says, your husband is ready to be picked up. I said, that's not my husband. And she said, yeah, okay, right. You know, she's like that, I don't believe you, that tone in her voice. I get back to the doctor's office to pick him up and I tell her I'm here to pick up Jeffrey Davis. And another nurse came out and she said, oh, your husband just came out of surgery. He's recovering now.
Right.
And I told her, I said, that's not my husband. And she gave me that look like, yeah, sure, right. In the meantime, what I didn't know, a third nurse was in the back telling him, oh, your wife is here. And he was saying, that's not my wife. Oh. And she's telling him the same thing. The other nurse is like, yeah, right, sure. So I came home. I had two daughters. And I told them, I got to run and go get Sergeant Davis, but he's coming back to our house because he can't go home because he's on medicine.
Right.
Well, my oldest daughter, she's fixed him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and some tomato soup. And the little one, she's saying, hi, Sergeant Davis. And she's jumping up on him like she knows him.
Right.
And I said, you don't know that man, get off of him. And she said, that's Sergeant Davis. And they just fell in love with him.
Yeah.
So he sat there and spent the afternoon with us. I had to wait until he was able to drive. And later that week, I called my aunt in Baltimore, and I was telling her about how the girls reacted towards him and what the nurses were saying. And she said, ah. And I'm like, okay, what are you awing about? She said, kids know. She said, you better pay attention. She said, if the kids fell in love with him and they just met him, she said, that might be the one for you. I said, no.
Tell everyone a little bit about married military couples and what that is, knowing that it's Valentine's Day week.
Well, I got tired of hearing all of the negative comments about people in the military. Marriages don't last, and the military destroys your marriage. And I said, that's not true. Those photographs, they were from one of my several of my military Facebook groups. I put the picture of my husband and me in our uniforms. I said, are there any other married military couples? I want to do a photo show with my Arts Council group of married military couples. And I just got bombarded with people were sending me pictures of who they were, how they met, what branch of service, and how long they've been married. And they helped me to prove that every marriage in the military does not end in divorce. So that's my story, and the photos are the proof.
And the photos are the proof. So Serbennia, people are going to be seeing this as part of our Black History Month programming as well. And you're a small business owner, you're a veteran. As a veteran, what does Black History Month mean to you?
I grew up during the Civil Rights Movement. I grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, which was a predominantly Black community. Everything that I did, it was always there was always Black teachers, Black parents. You hear people talk all the time, or not all the time, but quite often, about how the next door neighbor could discipline you if you did something wrong. And that's the kind of community that I grew up in. Black history to me is it's that village. And then in the military, I can remember I met my first Black colonel, and he was a great big, tall, thin man, and he had a deep voice, and I said, wow, he's a colonel. And I'd never seen a Black colonel. So me having the opportunity to join the military, to go in as a Black female, I was a lot of firsts and everything throughout my career. So even when I made E8 and got promoted, I was the first Black E8 female in a training support battalion. Black history to me, as a Black female, as a African-American soldier in the military, it is who I am. And I look back because I know that I stand on the shoulders of other Black soldiers who made it possible for me to become a Black female in the military. I want to know my military history, and I want to know my African-American history. So I've done my genealogy. I've traced my roots. I can trace it all the way back to what tribe I came from in Ghana. So I guess growing up without a mom and no one to tell you who you are related to and where your heritage came from, I wanted to know. So I started digging, and I thank God and I thank the military for that, because if it had not been for the training I got in the military with doing research and investigating and knowing how to find things and do paperwork and go through, manipulate through different branches of the service, I learned those things in the military. The military taught me how to dig deep and find the right answer. And I've always been one of those people who refuse to take no for an answer.
Well, I think that's a great kind of way to end this, because again, as one of our inspiring stories, you've just demonstrated that you found your own training, you did it your way.
I did.
You found love in the military, you started your own business after, and like you said, you learned those skills to find out the answers to those questions. And if someone said no, you were like, no, I'll find the answer to yes.
So there's a way to get it done.
Yeah, it's been my honor to get to know you, know that you're here local in Columbus, and that you're here in the museum and visiting here, and ideally for everyone out there as a veteran or a family member veteran, we hope that this place, you can see yourself in this place through the stories, and now you just added to that. So thanks for talking to us today. and we'll keep tabs on you as we go down the road.